Hey guys, Michael here. As many of you know, right before I went on break, I did a series of videos talking about the Siege rework. And as I got back from break, I was planning on doing a little bit more talking about Siege and kind of collecting some of my ideas about things that I thought would be pretty important things for CA to consider moving forward. But since I missed that time and since I haven't myself signed up for the beta, as I mentioned before, I can't really sign up for the beta because we've got these ongoing campaigns happening right now on the channel, and I don't want to do anything to completely brick those campaigns. So what I've done instead is I've gone out and I've been paying some attention to some of the other particularly knowledgeable, particularly creative YouTubers out there just to kind of hear what they all think of the Siege rework. And so I was watching a little bit of LOREMASTER of SOTEK here earlier today. He was actually live streaming, and I really hope he doesn't mind my showing a clip of his live stream. This guy, by the way, I presume most of you are already familiar with LOREMASTER of SOTEK. He is absolutely awesome. If you're not already familiar with him, highly encourage you to check him out. Knows the lore as well as anyone. Really good at the game as well. Very entertaining. Love his channel. LOREMASTER, if by any chance you happen to see this, please know that I'm a huge fan, and please don't be angry with me for using a small clip of your stuff. But anyway, the reason why I wanted to do this short little video is because he packs so many great ideas into such a short period of time here that I actually thought, well, there's no point in my even doing a video like what my ideas are right now, because this guy's already beat me to the punch. He's got some really good ideas that I not only about the Siege rework, but kind of about the game in general, which will make sense here in a minute. But anyway, so I just kind of thought like, okay, this guy's ideas need to be shared with everyone else. So if you haven't seen this stuff already, then hopefully you'll be willing to watch a couple of minutes here on my channel, because I'd like to reinforce what he has to say here. So I'm going to do a little, I think I'm going to probably play this in two different parts. I'm going to interrupt here halfway through and then let him finish up as well. But yeah, I just wanted to give people an opportunity to hear what he has to say here, and also then to, like I said, gush a little bit about what he has to say, and hopefully reinforce his ideas.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely love to see sieges get more complex. But yeah, if I had it my way, which I know not everyone's going to agree with this. Like I haven't seen it, but I've heard that there's already been certain people bitching about sieges, and they're like, "Oh, I don't like that it slows me down." And it's like, first of all, you shouldn't, like, the game should heavily encourage you to do a mix of fighting battles and auto-resolving. You should not be auto-resolving your way across the entire game most of the time. And if you're like, oh, it's too hard, it slows me down too much, well then turn down the difficulty, nerd. Like, I feel like there's some people that, like, don't want to play the game, essentially. And I will say I do like the new labor force calculation. I feel like it's a lot easier to do the math on, like, what all you want to do here. Like, I do feel like I have not been a fan of some of the comments I've seen regarding this pack, and people being like, well, I just don't want to have to play the game. And it's like, well, then why are you playing it? But anyway,
yeah, so I know this is going to be a little bit unpopular with some people, and I do always say that if you've paid for the game, you should be able to play it whatever way that you want to. So take some of this, I guess, with a little bit of a grain of salt. I think that ideally we all want to have a game where we can maximize the parts of the game that we enjoy and minimize the parts of it that we don't enjoy. And so if you really want to focus on the strategy and not deal with the battles, then you should have a game where you can do that. But what CA should be striving to do is making the game complex and engaging in all of its different elements. And what that means with respect to sieges in particular is they shouldn't make it easier to do sieges for everybody, because a lot of us really like the idea of sieges being difficult and slowing the game down. So if there's a way to do it where there are options, whether it's difficulty settings or something else, where you can sort of streamline the whole siege process, I'm fine with that. But I really think they need to design the game, as far as sieges are concerned, around making them difficult, hopefully having complicated mechanics, a little bit more complex than what vanilla has, but basically making it, for those of us who like engaging with the difficult mechanics of sieges, making it more of a challenge, and in particular slowing down the game, because realistically speaking, that's what sieges should be all about, right? Is you shouldn't be building. I'm kind of jumping around here a little bit. Obviously, LOREMASTER of SOTEK does a much better job at explaining his ideas than I do, and I apologize for that. I know I get too wordy, but basically, from a realistic standpoint, sieges should be strong points that are built to basically slow enemy armies down, and the game should reflect that. And I know that there are some players who like the faster pace of the campaign, so there should be some way that they can do that, whether it's auto-resolving, whether it's options when in the game setup or whatever, but that's not realistic. Realistically speaking, sieges should be difficult and they should slow campaigns down. And so if there's a lot of players that are complaining that sieges would only slow the game down even more, I just hope that CA doesn't assume that, okay, since that's the loudest voice, that's the way we're going to design the game, because what they really should be doing is they should be basically trying to accommodate those players if that's a part of the game that they don't want to play, make it a little bit easier for them to get around it. But for the rest of us, design sieges in a way that is, more akin to what sieges really should be like, and turn them into more of the grand experience that I think sieges ought to be. I'm going to go ahead and leave it at that. But I'll be very curious to hear what the feedback is.
In my opinion, I would very, very much like. I think gates should be impossible to attack unless you have the siege attacker trait. So, like, if you don't have the trait, you can't attack them. They're invulnerable to you. So that way you have to use monstrous infantry, or specialized units to attack them. And then that would give us a tier system of, like, you've got normal units that can't attack gates. You have like the next tier units that have siege attacker but don't have bonus damage versus buildings, but so they can attack gates, but they're not necessarily great at it. Then you have the next tier, which is that you have siege attacker and you deal bonus damage to buildings, so you're really good at smashing down gates. Then you have the next tier, which is that you have the wall breaker talent or trait, which allows you to attack walls and gates, and you're pretty good at it. And then the top tier, which would be that you have the wall breaker talent trait, and you have really good bonus damage versus buildings. I think that would be the ideal system for that, because then you would have a nice diverse set of places that units could fall on within the various rosters, so that you could build your armies to respond to the kinds of things you need to deal with.
I'm going to pause right there because I just love that last point that he made right there. I mean, I actually really agree with everything that he just said. I think that's a fantastic way to organize it. But that last point that he made about that way you can kind of tailor your armies towards whatever is in front of you, like whatever your upcoming objective and enemy is, there should be a little bit of customization required to be most efficacious against that. So that is the type of complexity or depth to a strategy game that I think really adds a lot of value to it, and it's somewhat lacking right now in vanilla. So I really love what he says. It's not just all about just randomly build all of your highest tier units, but rather have to tailor your armies a little bit more than we currently do have to specifically deal with what it is that we have upcoming in our campaigns.
Alternatively, if they want to go for a more complex solution, what they could do instead is they could say, all right, we're going to make it where we're going to keep it where anyone can attack gates, but gates have a good amount of health. and they need to add in like a boiling oil effect, which is like basically a spell that gates can cast on themselves, like right in the area where attackers are, where it's like an explosion effect that deals significant anti-infantry damage. That way, if there's any like units that are not monstrous creatures, or they're not using a battering ram, because the battering ram allows them to stand kind of far back, so the battering ram would protect you. But if you get hit by that explosion and you're infantry, you just take like a damage. Like, it should be like you get your ripped in half. So like if you're attacking the gates, using garbage to just like attack all of them at once and kind of like cheese the game, in my opinion, the AI should just be like, die. Could do supply upgrades for gate. Yeah, I mean, granted, I'd like to see supply systems be made much more interesting. There's a lot we could do with supplies to make supplies like genuinely very dynamic and interesting. But I don't know if the community is ready for that discussion yet.
All right, so I think that's enough, but hopefully you get what I mean about he packed an awful lot of information into a very small period of time. Love the ideas. I don't really think the two options, he said, like if they wanted to make it more complex, they could introduce the quote-unquote spell effect on gates where it would drop down oil or what have you on the infantry attacking. I don't think those things are mutually exclusive. I don't see any reason why you couldn't have that as well, although maybe it's just not necessary if you use the previous solution that he mentioned. But some combination of those I would love to see built into the game. But anyway, obviously I'm going to include the link to his video in the description of this one. It was a long live stream, so hopefully I picked out the few minutes of it that I think were most relevant to the topic, and just they were so good that I felt like they needed to be shared with the community. I'd love to hear what you guys think. Were any of you guys watching his stream? And also, of course, do you agree with his ideas? I'm always willing to listen to the possibility that I could be wrong on these things, but those sounded like really solid ideas as far as I'm concerned. So I hope that CA, and I know he's obviously a much, much bigger YouTuber than I am, hopefully CA follows his channel, gets to hear some of that, maybe has already heard some of those ideas before and tries to incorporate them into their rework. So yeah, I think it's promising that we have YouTubers like LOREMASTER of SOTEK who are continuing to be invested in the game, who are providing ideas like this, and the fact that CA does continue to be engaged with the community and is trying to make these improvements. I remain relatively hopeful, relatively optimistic that we're going to see some improvements. I don't feel like we need to just abandon this game or just abandon the sieges completely. I do think that there are little things that we can do incrementally that will vastly improve them. Still think the number one problem is probably the pathfinding and siege battles, but there are obviously all sorts of other things that are currently suboptimal that little changes like this I think could go a long way towards improving. So again, let me know what you think. Please go check out LOREMASTER of SOTEK's video. I do not want to feel like I'm profiting off of his work, and in this case I kind of really am. So I would love it if you guys all go and throw, give him at least a thumbs up, if not more than that. So give him a subscribe or something. But like I said, most of you probably already know him and probably already saw most of this. So, all right, anyway, I will go ahead and leave it there, but please feel free to leave your comments and, let me know what you think. And I am glad to be back. I'm really kind of enjoying getting back into Warhammer after the serious withdrawal that I experienced from being away for a week. More updates on the Let's Play campaigns that we've got going on should be being uploaded here very, very soon. So, all right, anyway, hope everybody's doing well. Thanks for waiting for me. Hopefully the YouTube algorithm doesn't punish me overly for having not uploaded a video in a week. And anyway, I will go ahead and leave it there. Thanks everybody so much for watching and listening, and I will see you all in the next video.